Hello everyone, I'm Ihsan. In this video, we'll compare the look of One UI 5.0 based on Android 13 on the Samsung S22 Ultra with iOS 16 on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Both of these UIs in the latest update now look even more openly inspired by each other. Samsung One UI is seen immediately moving fast, adjusting the name and new features in the latest One UI 5. And this took place shortly after Apple launched some of its newest features on iOS 16. This can be seen immediately in the modes and routines features on the latest Samsung One UI, which looks really inspired by focus mode on iOS. Whereas previously on Samsung One UI, the feature was actually already exists and it is called Bixby Routines. It's just that in the latest version, the modes feature is added and the name is now changed to Modes and Routines. If we compare this modes feature to the focus mode on iOS, it will immediately be seen as if Samsung tries to make the feature similar to iOS 16 and quickly make it available in the latest One UI 5 version. Then there is also the lock screen customization feature, which Apple also introduced on iOS 16. And not long ago at the launch of One UI 5, Samsung also immediately added the latest lock screen customization feature, which actually already existed before. However, this latest update has also added several additional features and a new look. And then the latest lock screen customization feature, it also once again looks very similar to the latest lock screen customization on iOS 16. Apart from that, several lock screen options on One UI 5 also looks very much like the option on iOS 16. It can be immediately seen when we want to choose a font for the clock display on the lock screen. And there are also several wallpaper effect and color options which are also similar to iOS 16. But even though they look quite similar, there are also some of these lock screen features that only exist on iOS 16 and not available on One UI 5. For example, some of the exclusive features available on iOS 16 is in the lock screen section. One of which is the depth effect of the wallpaper options on the lock screen. In addition, there are also some special wallpapers from emoji that can be changed according to whatever emoji you want. Then there are also planet wallpapers which has seamless transitions from the lock screen to the home screen. Then apart from that, there is also live activities features that can be very useful. One of which is to check the live score of the soccer match. And then the widget feature is also slightly different. In the iOS version, the widget is immediately visible at the bottom of the clock on the lock screen. Whereas in the Android 13 on One UI 5, you must first tap on the clock to bring up the widget on the lock screen. Then in iOS 16, for the lock screen display, which can be edited and saved immediately, it can also be used for multiple lock screen display, whereas in One UI 5, only one lock screen can be saved. Then the appearance of the now playing music and also the notification don't change much on the lock screen of Samsung One UI 5. Here you can see that the change is only the icon is slightly bigger, while in the iOS 16, the notification display comes with new notification option. There is tag, list, and count view. In addition, the focus mode feature that syncs with the wallpaper on the lock screen is only available in iOS 16 so far. On One UI 5.0, you can only display the active modes on the lock screen without being able to sync to the active wallpaper. Then in the new wallpaper setting options, when choosing the wallpaper from the lock screen or directly from the settings, on Samsung One UI 5 now it looks very much like the appearance when setting the wallpaper on iOS 16. Apart from the placement of the wallpaper options, which looks very much like iOS 16, the color gradation options at the very bottom also looks very similar to iOS 16. The feature that is still only exclusive on iOS 16 is the wallpaper blur option. This feature is still not available on Samsung One UI 5.0. Then for widgets on the lock screen, now in the latest One UI, the stack widget feature has also been improved. The feature actually has been added from the previous One UI 4.1. But it was still not possible to create widgets directly by doing drag and drop directly on the widget. And now in the latest Samsung One UI, it already supports adding stack widgets directly. And you can directly drag widgets that has the same size on top of another. And a regular widget will immediately turn into a stack widget. Then there is also a new smart suggestion feature in the new widget on One UI 5.0. This feature is also very similar to the widget that was already available on iOS 16 called Siri Suggestion. There is only a slight difference. In the Samsung One UI, the Smart Suggestion feature only has one size, while on Siri Suggestions on iOS 16, there are several different size options. And there is also another difference in the appearance of Siri Suggestion on iOS. The appearance of the icon will immediately blend in with other application icons and doesn't look like a widget. While this Smart Suggestion on Samsung One UI 5 will immediately look like a widget, which is separate from other icons. Next, there is a feature that can copy text from photo that was previously presented on iOS 16. Now this feature is also being improved in the latest One UI 5 so that its use can now be more easily accessible. However, the copy text features on One UI 5 still can't copy text from videos like on iOS 16, and its use also feels a little smoother and faster on iOS 16 as compared to One UI 5. On Samsung One UI 5.0, sometimes it still doesn't feel very smooth on the process of text selection when you want to copy text from a photo. There are also the latest features on iOS 16 which are very phenomenal. It is very phenomenal because you can directly select objects from a photo in the gallery very quickly. You can immediately press and hold on a photo in the gallery and select objects very quickly with this latest feature. And the objects will be selected very quickly and easily, and the results of the photo selection also look very accurate in various photos that we tried. In the latest One UI 5.0 update, it seems that Samsung is trying very hard to be able to match this latest iOS feature. This can be seen from the addition of features that can create stickers and also cropping photos in certain shapes. The object selection feature, like in iOS 16, actually already exists from the previous version of One UI. It's just that the feature can only be accessed when editing photos. And unfortunately, it can't be accessed directly with one tap, like on iOS 16. Then there is also the latest notification setting features on One UI 5, which looks very similar to the notification settings on iOS. As for notification settings in each applications on iOS, which we can set on the lock screen, notification center, and also banners, the appearance now looks quite similar in the latest version of One UI 5.0. Here there is the lock screen, badge, and also pop-up notification option. The notification display settings like this looks quite similar to the display of settings on iOS. Then apart from that, there are also language settings for each application, such as on iOS, which is now also finally being available in Android 13 version on Samsung One UI 5. And so far, even though it seems that many iOS 16 features have been adopted by One UI 5 after its release, however, there are also several new features on iOS 16 being added recently, even though these features have been around for a long time on Android. For example, the new battery percentage feature that was just available in iOS 16. Then there is also the latest always on display feature in iOS 16. Now the always on display feature in the iOS 16.2 beta version also looks very similar to the always on display implementation on Android, which is already available for a long time on Android. To check the comparison of the always on display on the latest Android and iOS, you can immediately click the video that shows on your screen. Hopefully useful. See you in the next video.